I don't live in the wild, I am the wild. Baldo, that is. I think most of us take for granted the luxuries that we enjoy every day. Electricity in our homes, food in our fridge, or even the fact that we even have a home, period. But believe it or not, there are some people that choose to live in the wild and fend for themselves, and they do it in the most epic way possible. Here are 10 epic people who live in the wild. Number 10 is Mick Dodge. Mick Dodge is known as a rainforest dweller and lives in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. Nearly 30 years ago, he abandoned modern life and disappeared into the forest. Since then, he's developed a deep understanding of the woods and the wildlife which calls that place home. Often sleeping inside tree trunks, Mick has no permanent shelter and often walks barefoot across the forest floor. Nah, hell nah, snakes, tarantulas, nah, give me a good boot. Though reveling in encounters with bears and other animals, Mick occasionally returns to civilization. A National Geographic series called The Legend of Mick Dodge followed his unusual lifestyle as he negotiated with poachers and navigated the dangers of the forest. Occasionally encountering other forest dwellers, Mick forages from his surroundings and barters for money. He then heads to a nearby town to order a hamburger. Hold on, let's just back that up for a second. Not about the hamburger thing, about the fact that he encounters other forest dwellers? There's more people like him? What? Number 9 is Sue Aikens. Another epic person who lives in the wilderness is Sue Aikens. Her incredible life battling the elements has been documented in the TV series Life Below Zero. In it, she illustrates her daily life away from civilization in remote Alaska. Her camp is located near the Kavik River and is 317 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. In case you didn't know, that's real cold. Nearly 10 years ago, Sue was attacked by a grizzly bear while out in the remote wilderness. The creature tore open her arm and head. It's like the true tale of the Revenant. During the attack, the grizzly's jaws locked onto her head, and as it savaged her body, her survival knowledge kicked in. The only way to survive was to play dead. Luckily, the bear, thinking that she was dead, backed away, and she had to wait 10 days before any help arrived. Despite this experience and others, Sue continues to live in the remoteness of the Arctic Circle. Yeah, no, I'm not even gonna lie to you. If a grizzly bear even winked in my direction, I would be gone from that place. Number 8 is David Glasheen. Many people who decide to live in the wilderness do so because they can't adapt to modern life. But that's not the case with David Glasheen. He made millions investing in gold mining. In fact, his fortune peaked at $28.4 million, but during the big crash of 1987, he lost a big chunk of his fortune. His marriage fell apart and his life felt empty. After buying a piece of land on a remote Australian island, Glasheen initially hoped to build a luxury resort, but he fell in love with solitary life and instead built a shack. That was the beginning of him living as a hermit. The island's name is Restoration, and Glasheen feels that living there has indeed restored his mind, body, and spirit. He takes boat trips to the mainland for supplies and hopes that one day he can find someone to share his beautiful desert island with him. But in the meantime, if he needs companionship, we all know what he can do. Just put a bloody handprint on a volleyball and call it Wilson! Number 7 is John Wells. Not everyone who decides to live in the wild wanders off into remote regions with nothing but a backpack with them. Some, such as John Wells, chooses an off-the-grid lifestyle. This means that he can build everything that he needs out of the desert so that he can be completely self-sustaining. John was a fashion photographer until several years ago when he sold his New York property and bought a plot of land in a remote region of Mexico. Some refer to it as the Badlands because cartels and other criminals use that region to smuggle their illegal goods and even dispose of bodies. But for John, the region has given him the dream life of solitude. He hopes that one day he can find someone to share that home with him, but for now he's content with a crazy rooster called Carl and a calf that he named Ben. He's just like the crazy cat lady, but of the wilderness. Number 6 is Brett Hickman and Aaron McKittrick. Brett Hickman and Aaron McKittrick began their journey into the wilderness with a few small steps. While on a trip to Mexico, the couple decided to head away from tourist areas and walk a 48-kilometer stretch of shoreline to another town. The experience created a passion for walking for them, and over a decade later, they had walked more than 7,000 miles and had a child along the way. Unlike some who disappear into the wilderness and have a perfect spot to build a shelter to call home, Hickman and McKittrick explore the world and wilderness by foot, sleeping under a canopy of stars whenever they find it comfortable. This has taken them across Alaska and deep into Canada. Following that adventure, the couple traveled to Mongolia, where they continued to explore remote locations away from the stress of modern life. That sounds lovely, but to be honest with you, I get stressed sometimes, but I don't ever think of just walking around the earth. But to each their own. Number 5 is Robert Long. Robert Long took isolation to a whole nother level. He trekked to New Zealand's remote southwestern coast and then by the Gorge River built a home for himself out of driftwood that had washed up on shore. For a long time he meditated on life, but in a chance encounter he met a woman called Catherine who was hiking through the area. Then they fell in love and had a family together. Since then they've continued to forage as well as fish in the ocean off the coast for survival. But this idyllic setting is not without its dangers. The area is notorious for ferocious storms and results in torrents of water, often causing life-threatening floods. But despite this, Robert and his family managed to raise their children to the age of 18 before they left to explore the world just like their parents. Number 4 is Yuri Alexeiev. Giving up the luxurious life of a lawyer in protest against the Vladimir Putin regime, Yuri Alexeiev now lives in the outskirts of a forest. But unlike most people who live off the grid, Yuri picked a spot just off a highway 96 kilometers outside of Moscow. He actually built an underground shelter which some describe as a hobbit hole and hooked it up to a generator. Tricksy hobbitses! Gathering firewood and water from the forest, Yuri is able to sustain himself, even in the harsh Russian winter. And in his hobbit-like home, he keeps thousands of books and even a sign by the nearby highway asking people to donate books to him to read. In return, they can take one from his collection. Yuri has even been able to access the internet from a self-made home and interact with those interested in his way of life, which has been thousands. Number 3 is Obon Vang. Obon Vang is a real-life Tarzan. His incredible story of living in the wilderness begins with his father. During the Vietnam War, his father fled into the Vietnamese jungle with his 2-year-old son in tow. Believing that the conflict was continuing, they remained in a remote location in the forest. They stayed there for 41 years with no knowledge of the modern world. It was only when authorities recently discovered both men that they were returned to civilization. At the age of 44, Obon Vang is a true expert of survival. He can capture almost any animal, build any type of tool, and sees the forest as his true home. In recent years, he's returned to the forest sporadically. It's clear that he feels that he belongs there. But whenever he does return, he continues to surprise and educate with his unprecedented knowledge of forest life. Number 2 is Christopher Knight. More sinister than epic, Christopher Knight's story is one of the strangest accounts of wilderness living on record. Spending 27 years in the woods of northeastern Maine in the United States, he scavenged and stole food and items that he required to survive. Rumors persisted for decades of a shadowy figure living in the wilderness near rural towns in Maine. Gather around the campfire, children, while I tell you the story of the shadowy figure in the forest. Many had thought that these stories were local folklore or idle gossip at best, but when Christopher Knight tripped a surveillance sensor, the authorities knew he existed. It's thought that he's guilty of over 1,000 instances of theft and burglary. He would sneak into cottages and help himself to anything that he needed. Those living in the area were glad that the man had been caught and that a series of break-ins and strange goings-on could finally be explained. Who ate the last Twinkie? Do not blame it on the shadowy figure again, John. And number 1 is the man of the hole. The The Man of the Hole is the most isolated person in the world. He gets his strange title from building huts and then digging 5-foot holes deep inside of them which have no known purpose. And nobody knows his real name. In fact, no one's even sure what language he speaks. He lives in the Amazon forest and is believed to have been the last surviving member of a tribe. The Man of the Hole is the only one who knows what happened to his tribe, but no one can get close enough to him to uncover the answers of these questions. Disturbingly, he's actually violent towards those that he encounters, probably through fear, and even shot a man in the chest with an arrow after he tried to speak with him. Hey, excuse me, Man of the Hole? The Brazilian government has declared a 64-kilometer square region off limits to loggers as well as trespassers, so that the Man of the Hole can live out his days in peace and isolation. Well, bless these epic people who live in the wilderness. For me, I'll just stick with the comforts of a home and access to internet. And a phone. I cannot live without my phone. It's a bit of an obsession. But leave a comment below. Would you live like these people? I think I already know the answer, but let me know. See you next time.